Welcome back to another deep dive where we give you, well, a shortcut to getting really well informed on some pretty big ideas.
Ideas that shape how we think.
Exactly. And today we're plunging into a truly monumental work, something that honestly reshaped how we talk about a just society. John Rawls' A Theory of Justice came out back in '71.
Yeah, a landmark text. We've pulled insights from that original book, but also his later refinements. There's the 85 essay, Justice is Fairness, and then the 2001 book, Justice is Fairness, a restatement.
So we've got a good spread.
We do.
Yeah.
It gives us a pretty full picture of his core arguments and, the massive influence they've had.
Okay, so our mission for you today, we want to unpack Rawls' big ideas, especially how he tries to square that circle, liberty versus equality.
It's the classic tension.
Right, and we want you to see why his way of thinking was, and honestly still is, so influential. You should walk away with a really clear sense of things like the original position, the veil of ignorance, and his two big principles of justice.
And we'll also look at how Rawls's ideas compare to other major theories like utilitarianism, for instance, or perfectionism, and touch on some of the really fascinating implications his theory has. It touches everything from economics to how we feel about ourselves, our self-respect.
Okay, sounds good. Let's dig in. The foundational question: why a theory of justice? So Rawls had this, well, incredibly ambitious goal. He was looking at thinkers like Hume and Kant, and he wanted to genuinely reconcile liberty and equality.
Not just theoretically, but apply it.
Apply it to what he called the basic structure of a well-ordered society. He wasn't just, observing how things are. He was really trying to draw up a blueprint for how society should be set up.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about creating a framework for how we cooperate as a society. He pictures this situation, what he calls moderate scarcity, meaning, there's enough to go around, but not unlimited abundance.
Right, resources are finite.
And people aren't purely selfish, but they aren't purely altruistic either. They have their own goals, but they can work together. And what's really central here, I think, is Rawls' conviction that truth and justice are, well, uncompromising. Meaning, justice isn't just something you horse trade or compromise on for political convenience. It's fundamental. It sets the rules for rights, duties, how benefits and burdens get shared out. You can't just sacrifice basic rights because it might make the economy slightly better or something.
So he's setting a very high bar. And he's definitely not just describing the world as it is, especially when you think about those deep inequalities he talks about, things that affect your life chances right from the start.
Yeah, inequalities that you can't just explain away by saying, oh, they earned it, things you're born into.
Right, which merit alone can't justify. The radical thought experiment, the original position, and veil of ignorance. Okay, so that's the massive goal. How does he even start? How do you build a theory of justice that everyone could, in principle, agree on? This leads to his famous thought experiment, right?
It does. This is where Rawls gets really creative, working within that social contract idea, Locke, Rousseau. But he adds this unique twist. The original position.
The original position.
And the key mechanism, the really clever part, is the veil of ignorance.
Okay, unpack that. Veil of ignorance.
Imagine this. You're part of a group, and your task is to choose the basic principles of justice for your society, the rules everyone will live under. But you're behind this veil.
I'm a metaphorical veil.
Completely metaphorical.
Yeah.
And behind it, you are totally blind to any specific facts about yourself. Yeah. You don't know your social class, rich or poor. You don't know your natural talents, smart or not so smart, strong or weak.
Wow.
You don't know your gender, your race, your religion, even what your personal goals or interests will be. You have no idea where you'll land in the society you're designing.
So why, if I don't know anything about myself, what does that blindness actually do? How does it help choose fair principles?
Well, think about it. If you don't know your own position, you can't rig the rules in your own favor. You can't say, well, let's make rules that benefit, say, blue-eyed people, because you might not be blue-eyed once the veil lifts. It forces you, out of rational self-interest, to pick principles that are fair to everyone.
Because you might be anyone.
Exactly. You could be the least advantaged person in that society. So Rawls argues, this setup guarantees impartiality. It stops the principles from being skewed by random chance, like who your parents are or what talents you happen to be born with. Rational people in this situation, he says, would choose principles designed to protect everyone, especially those who end up worst off. It's like taking out insurance. Rawls' two principles of justice. The core.
Okay, so this is ingenious. You're behind the veil, you're rational, you want to protect yourself no matter where you end up. Rawls says people in that situation would agree on two main principles of justice.
That's right, two core principles, though he did tweak the wording a bit over the years, in '85 and 2001, but the essence stayed the same.
What's the first one?
The first principle is often called the greatest equal liberty principle. Basically, it says society has to guarantee the widest possible range of basic liberties for everyone, equally.
Basic liberties like?
Things like freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, political liberties, the right to vote, run for office, freedom of association, personal integrity, the rights covered by the rule of law. Standard liberal freedoms.
Okay, sounds familiar, but what's the catch?
The absolutely crucial part is its priority. This principle comes first. You cannot, under any circumstances, trade away these fundamental liberties for, say, greater economic prosperity or social benefits.
So you can't argue for restricting speech just because it might boost the economy?
Absolutely not. According to Rawls, liberty can only be restricted for the sake of liberty itself, for instance, if one person's freedom directly infringes on another's. But the overall system of liberty must be the same for everyone. Liberty takes precedence.
Okay, crystal clear. Liberty is numero uno. But societies aren't perfectly equal. What about differences in wealth, status, opportunity? How does he handle inequality?
That brings us to the second principle. And this one only kicks in after the first principle, equal liberty, is fully secured. It also has two distinct parts, applied in order.
Two parts of
The first part, usually listed as Part B, is fair equality of opportunity. This demands that any social or economic inequalities must be attached to jobs and positions that are open to everyone under conditions of, well, fair equality of opportunity.
What does fair mean here, more than just saying anyone can apply?
Much more. It means that people with similar talents and motivations should have roughly similar life chances, regardless of the social class they were born into. Society needs to actively work to mitigate the effects of background circumstances on opportunity. It's about leveling the playing field in a real way.
Okay, that's a strong requirement. What's the other part?
The other part, Part A, is the really famous one, the difference principle. This is probably Rawls' most distinctive contribution.
The difference principle.
It says that social and economic inequalities, differences in income, wealth, power, are only justified if they work out to the greatest expected benefit of the least advantaged members of society.
Whoa, okay, say that again. Inequalities are okay only if they help the people at the bottom the most?
Exactly. If having some people earn a lot more somehow incentivizes innovation or economic growth in a way that maximizes the prospects of the poorest group, makes them better off than they would be under a system of perfect equality, then that inequality is permissible.
But if an inequality doesn't benefit the least advantaged or makes them worse off,
Then it's unjust, according to Rawls. It's not enough for an inequality to be earned or to create some benefit. It has to specifically be structured to provide the maximum possible advantage to those with the least.
that's pretty radical compared to just saying equality of opportunity or rewarding merit.
It absolutely is. And there's another piece. These inequalities, even if they benefit the least advantaged, shouldn't create new barriers for those at the bottom to access positions of authority. He connects this difference principle to the idea of fraternity. Like in an ideal family, you wouldn't want advantages for yourself unless they also helped your less fortunate siblings.
That's a powerful analogy.
And it leads to this idea that even natural talents, being born smarter, stronger, whatever, aren't things you purely deserve the benefits of. They're more like a social asset, something that should be used for the common good, particularly benefiting those who are less lucky in the natural lottery.
Beyond other theories.
Okay, this framework, equal liberty first, then inequalities only if they meet fair opportunity and difference principle conditions. How did this sit with other ways people thought about justice at the time? He was clearly pushing back against something.
Oh, definitely. He was directly taking aim at utilitarianism, which was, and arguably still is, a very dominant view.
Utilitarianism, the greatest good for the greatest number, right? Maximize overall happiness.
Precisely. Maximize total or average happiness, welfare, utility, whatever you call it. Rawls' big critique is that utilitarianism does not take seriously the distinction between persons.
What does that mean?
It means utilitarianism could theoretically justify sacrificing the rights or well-being of a few individuals or even a minority group if doing so produced a greater sum total of happiness for society as a whole.
Like the classic sacrificing one to save many scenario.
Exactly. Or even something more systemic. Rawls uses the stark example of a slaveholder trying to argue that slavery is okay because maybe it leads to a higher average level of well-being across the entire society, including the slaves, averaged out somehow.
Which sounds abhorrent.
And Rawls says people behind the veil of ignorance would never agree to principles that allowed for that possibility because they wouldn't risk being the ones sacrificed. They'd prioritize individual rights and liberties that protect everyone.
Okay, so that's utilitarianism. What about just intuition? Relying on our gut feelings about what's fair. He calls that intuitionism.
Right. Yeah, he uses intuitionism to describe views that have multiple basic moral principles, like maybe one principle for liberty, another for equality, another for efficiency, but no clear rules for how to rank or balance them when they conflict.
So you just have to weigh them intuitively in each case.
Pretty much, you rely on unguided intuition, as he puts it. Rawls found that unsatisfactory. He wanted a more systematic theory with clear priority rules, like the priority of liberty over the second principle, to resolve those conflicts explicitly.
So a theory of justice is meant to provide that structure that intuitionism lacks.
That's the aim, and he also contrasts his view with perfectionism.
Perfectionism, like striving for human excellence.
Exactly. Theories that say the goal of society should be to promote certain ideals of human excellence, achievement, or culture, maybe funding the arts, or promoting scientific discovery above all else.
So what's Rawls' issue with that?
While he wouldn't deny those things can be valuable, he argues they shouldn't be the basis for the fundamental structure of society or override individual liberties. Who gets to decide what excellence is? Such criteria can be vague, controversial, and could easily be used to justify limiting freedom for those who don't fit the mold. Justice, as fairness, his theory, deliberately avoids relying on any predefined concept of human perfection. It prioritizes fairness first, letting individuals pursue their own idea of a good life within that fair framework. Concepts in action. Refining the theory and its implications.
Okay, so we have the original position, the veil, the two principles. It's an impressive structure. But how does Rawls actually, justify it all? Does he just present it and say, take it or leave it? Or is there a process for checking if it makes sense?
No, not at all. He introduces this really important idea called reflective equilibrium.
Reflective equilibrium. Sounds balanced.
It is. It's a method, really, a process of going back and forth. You start with some basic, widely shared moral judgments that you feel pretty confident about, like slavery is wrong or religious persecution is unjust. These are your considered convictions.
Okay, starting points.
Then you propose general principles of justice, like Rawls's two principles, derived perhaps from the original position. Then you see if those principles, when applied, actually match up with your considered convictions in various specific cases.
And if they don't match? If the principles lead to a conclusion that feels wrong?
Then you have a choice. You either adjust the principles, maybe tweak the conditions of the original position, or you reconsider your initial judgment about that specific case. Maybe your intuition was off. You go back and forth, refining the principles and your judgments until they form a coherent, stable whole. That state of coherence is reflective equilibrium.
So it's like tuning an instrument, adjusting strings until everything sounds right together.
That's a great analogy. It's a continuous process, aiming for coherence between our abstract principles and our concrete moral feelings. It's not necessarily final. It can always be revisited.
Okay, that makes the theory feel more grounded. Now, another key term, primary goods. What are those?
Right. Primary goods are crucial for the whole system, especially the difference principle. These are things that Rawls assumes every rational person wants, no matter what their specific goals in life are. The all-purpose means you need to pursue any rational plan of life.
Like what kind of things?
He lists things like basic rights and liberties, which we covered in the first principle, freedom of movement, free choice of occupation, powers and prerogatives of offices, income and wealth.
The basics?
The basics, yeah. But critically, he also includes the social basis of self-respect.
Self-respect as a primary good. Interesting.
Hugely important for Rawls. We'll come back to that. But yeah, these primary goods are what the principles of justice are designed to distribute fairly. The veil of ignorance works because people behind it want to maximize their share of these goods, especially if they end up at the bottom.
Got it. So where do these principles actually bite? Where do they apply in the real world?
They apply primarily to the basic structure of society. That means the major social institutions.
Right.
The political constitution, the main economic arrangements, property system, market structure, the legal system, how families are structured in law. These big institutions profoundly shape people's life prospects from the start.
So it's not about individual action so much as the rules of the game.
Primarily, yes. And within that basic structure, the rule of law is absolutely vital. It means having a public system of rules, known and consistently applied, that defines rights and duties. It provides stability, predictability, a secure basis for liberty, as he says.
But the rules themselves could still be unfair, even if applied consistently.
Exactly. The rule of law ensures procedural fairness, impartial application, but it doesn't guarantee the rules themselves are just. That's what the two principles are for.
Okay, but what about when the system isn't just? Or when people feel a law violates those basic principles? Does Rawls allow for protest?
He does. He has a specific discussion of civil disobedience, but only within a society that is mostly just, but has some serious flaws.
So, not full-on revolution, but targeted protest.
Right. He sees it as a public, non-violent, conscientious political act, usually done illegally, aimed at bringing about a change in laws or policies.
And when is it justified?
Primarily for serious and clear violations of the first principle infringements on equal basic liberties, and also for blatant violations of the second part of the second principle, fair equality of opportunity.
What about the difference principle? Violations of that?
Interestingly, he thinks violations of the difference principle are generally less suitable grounds for civil disobedience. Because whether that principle is being met is often really complex, involves difficult economic judgments, and there can be reasonable disagreement about it. Violations of basic liberties are usually much clearer. Civil disobedience should appeal to the shared sense of justice of the community, using principles everyone can supposedly agree on, not just complex economic arguments or personal beliefs.
That's a careful distinction.
Yeah.
One last concept here. Does Rawls think about justice between generations? Do we owe anything to the future?
Yes, he includes a just savings principle. This is basically an understanding between generations. Each generation agrees to save a fair amount of capital knowledge, culture, resources, just institutions to pass on to the next.
So we invest for the future.
Exactly. But the goal isn't just endless economic growth. The aim is to save enough to establish and maintain just institutions over time. Once that's achieved, the need for further net saving might decrease. It's about securing justice permanently, the human dimension. Goodness, psychology, and self-respect.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground on principles, structures, institutions. It feels quite, well, abstract in places. What about the individual? How does living in our Rawlsian society connect to actually living a good, fulfilling life? Where's the human element?
That's a great question, and Rawls definitely addresses it. He develops a theory of goodness as rationality.
Goodness as rationality. What does that mean?
It means that what is good for a particular person is determined by what fits into our rational plan of life. For them, a plan they would choose with careful thought, awareness of the facts, if they were thinking clearly about their aims and abilities over their whole life.
So it's personalized. My good isn't necessarily your good.
Exactly. It's not about imposing one single view of the good life, but the process of choosing that life should be rational. And central to this, he introduces something called the Aristotelian principle.
Named after Aristotle, presumably.
Yes. It's the idea that, all else being equal, human beings enjoy using their developed abilities, their realized capacities. And crucially, the enjoyment tends to increase the more complex the ability is, or the greater the skill involved.
Though we like challenges. We prefer chess to checkers, maybe.
That's the classic example. We get more satisfaction from mastering complex skills than simple ones. It explains why we pursue learning, arts, sciences, complex crafts. It's part of human flourishing.
And how does a just society connect to that? Does it help us pursue these complex activities?
Absolutely. A well-ordered society, defined by Rawls' principles, by guaranteeing basic liberties and fair opportunities, creates the conditions where individuals can develop and exercise their capacities. It allows people to form and pursue their rational life plans.
So the just structure enables individual flourishing.
Precisely. And this connects directly to moral psychology and stability. Rawls argues that a society structured by his principles tends to generate its own support over time. It's psychologically stable. Because when people grow up in and experience the benefits of living under just institutions, they feel secure in their liberties, they see opportunities are fair, they feel respected, they naturally develop what he calls a sense of justice.
A feeling that the rules are fair and worth upholding.
Exactly. A desire to act according to those just principles and support the institutions. He even sketches out how this develops. Starting with a child's trust in parents, morality authority, moving to cooperation in groups, morality of association, and finally leading to an understanding and commitment to the abstract principles themselves, morality of principles.
So justice isn't just imposed, it becomes internalized. It feels right.
That's the idea. It taps into our capacity for moral learning, and this ties into the fundamental basis of equality. What makes someone entitled to equal justice in the first place?
Good question. Is it intelligence? Contribution to society?
Rawls says no. The basis is simply having what he calls moral personality. This means having two basic capacities. The capacity to form a conception of your own good, to have a rational life plan, and the capacity to have a sense of justice, to understand and act on fair principles.
And who has those capacities?
He argues that virtually all human beings possess these capacities to the minimum degree necessary to be considered equal citizens. It sets a very low, inclusive threshold. It doesn't matter how developed your sense of justice is or how rational your life plan seems to others. If you have these basic potentials, you are owed equal justice, especially the equal basic liberties.
So our fundamental equality isn't based on our talents or achievements.
Not at all. Any advantages that come from having greater capacity, say being exceptionally talented, are dealt with by the difference principle. Those talents should benefit everyone, especially the least advantaged, but our basic rights depend only on having that minimal moral personality.
Wow. Okay. That leads back to something you mentioned earlier, self-respect as a primary good. How does this all secure self-respect? Is it just about income?
No, crucially, it's not primarily about income, though having sufficient means matters. For Rawls, the most important basis for self-respect comes from the public affirmation of the status of equal citizenship for all.
The fact that everyone shares the same basic rights and liberties.
Exactly. Knowing that your fundamental rights are guaranteed, regardless of your social position or natural talents, provides a secure foundation for self-esteem. It signals that society values you as an equal member.
And why is that so important psychologically?
Because Rawls believes that damage to self-respect is a major source of social ills like envy and spite. When large inequalities make people feel degraded or that their worth isn't recognized, it can lead to destructive resentment.
So a just society minimizes that kind of harmful envy.
That's the hope. By ensuring equal status through the first principle and by ensuring through the difference principle that any inequalities must benefit the least well-off, making their position as good as it can be, the theory aims to create a social world where everyone can maintain their self-respect. That factoring of the principles equal liberty first, then justifiable inequality second, is key to securing this crucial human good. Outro.
Well, that was quite the journey. We've taken a really fascinating deep dive into John Rawls' A Theory of Justice. We unpacked that amazing thought experiment, the original position, the veil of ignorance.
Yeah, forcing impartiality.
Right. And we dissected his two core principles.
Yeah.
Number one, equal basic liberties for absolutely everyone.
With strict priority.
And number two, allowing social and economic inequalities only if they genuinely benefit the least advantaged and are linked to positions open to all under fair equality of opportunity.
And we saw how this offers a really compelling alternative to other big theories like utilitarianism or just relying on intuition or aiming for some kind of perfection. It's a structured, reasoned framework.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's not just about abstract rules, is it? It's about understanding why justice matters to us as individuals, how it connects to our self-respect, our ability to plan a life, our basic psychology.
What's striking is how he systematically links these high-level philosophical ideas right down to, the design of institutions and even our inner moral sense. It connects the dots.
It really does. It's not just rules on paper. It's about how those rules shape who we are and how we relate to each other.
And maybe it leaves you, the listener, with a question to chew on. If we genuinely buy into this idea of equal citizenship, of fundamental self-respect for everyone, what does that really demand from our society, from our institutions, and maybe even from us individually? How do we ensure that the differences we see around us truly do work to the greatest benefit of those who have the least?
That's a big question. Definitely something to think about.
Indeed.
Until our next deep dive, keep digging into what truly matters.